Perik Tes in Hilchas Tfilu Birchas Kenim. The Rambam at the end of Perik Zayin told us the Seder of Tfilas, of Shachris, of Minchen, of Ma'ariv. The Seder HaTfilas. Then in Perik Ches, he spoke about the importance of Tfilah B'tzibur and Tfilah Beis HaKnesses, and when is it considered a minyan, when there's a Chotzuk Tana, which is part of the Chotzuk Gdeila, and what kind of Shliach Tzibur you should take. Now here in Perik Tes, the Rambam is going to tell us the Seder of Tfilah B'tzibur. Perik Chi. Seder Tfilas HaTzibur Kachu. B'shachar kol ha'am yeshvin. Shliach Tzibur Yered L'fnei HaTeva, which is the Teva which had the Sefer Torah, which that was the Yered L'fnei HaTeva. And the idea of Yered, because in front of the Teva there was always like some steps down, because Mimamakim Krasich Hashem, Ve'emed Be'emtza Ha'am, because the Teva, Be'emtza Ha'am sounds like the Teva was mamash in the middle of the shul, but it's brought down that the Teva wasn't, it was in the front of the shul, and it was like by us, by Mizrach, but it was Be'emtza Ha'am, it was in the middle between Durham and Sofan, like by us, the Chazan stands usually in the middle, in the front. Umaschil Ve'emer Kaddish, V'cholam Einen Om Yesh Mirab Mevarach B'chol Kechon, Ve'einen Omen B'Seif Kaddish. So over here in Rambam, it sounds like you only say twice Omen. Omen Yesh Mirab and Omen. The Mishnah brings that Be'emes, in the Rambam in the Seder HaTfilas writes clearly that you say by Yiskal L'Shmi Rabbi you say Omen, Kar Mishicha you say Omen, and by Brichu you say Omen, and then again you say Omen. There's 5 times you say Omen during Kaddish. Over here he's only mentioned twice. Al Kol Panim he says Kaddish, the element says Omen, V'achar Kach Eimer Baruch Hu Es Hashem HaMaveirach, V'heim Oinen Baruch Hashem HaMaveirach Le'elam Vod, U'maschil U'peres Al Shema B'Kel Rom. So he starts saying the Birch is Kriya Shema, V'heim Einen Omen Acha Kol Bracha U'Bracha. And they answer Amen. And by Yedel Levarach V'Likreis, someone knows is Koire Ime Achemavarach Gal Yisrael. So those people that don't know listen to him. That's part of the Peres Al Shema. He's being made to them with Birchas Kriya Shema and Shema. Masha'en Ken, someone that knows shouldn't be Yitzhak from him, and he should say it himself. Then we'll soon get back to this. V'Hakel Emdim. Now the Rambam doesn't mention. He mentioned before that there's an inyan of saying from Tehillah LeDavid until the end of Tehillim, and there's other psukim that they said B'fanav and Acharav, and they were masakin 2 brachas, the bracha of Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach before that. So it looks like from the Rambam that's like part of the Tfilas HaShachar, so to speak, the Birchas HaShachar. Just like there's Birchas HaShachar, there's also the inyan of Ashrei, Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. That's part of Abazundar Cheshman. Masha'en Kein, the Seder HaTfilah, which starts with Birchas Kriya Shema, and Shemini Esrei, that's a new Cheshman, and that's the Seder what we're talking about now. But that has nothing to do with Tfilah B'tzibur. That's saying Shal Yochid. And now the Tfilah HaTzibur starts with the Kaddish and the Baruch Hu. So again, so it comes out that the Kaddish has nothing to do with the Yishtabach. The Kaddish in the Rambam has nothing to do with the Yishtabach. It's not pshat. Since you said Yishtabach, so Behemshech Lezeh you're saying Kaddish. The Kaddish is a Agdama to the Baruch Hu and to the Birchas Kriya Shema. That's what it comes out here in Rambam. Then the Rambam continues, Vakel Ein de Miyad. After he finished the Birchas Kriya Shema and Kriya Shema, everyone, Hakel Ein de Miyad, Mispal Belachash. Misha Ein Yedel Hispal, Oimet Shoisik, Achi Yispal Shliach Tzibur Belachash Im Shara V'chol sheyigmer tfilosim in hatzibur yivsa sholish psias lacherov v'yamid b'mokim sheyigia elo b'eshe posa. So there's the din that when a person goes back the 3 steps after he finishes the Tfilah Shemini Esrei, he shouldn't return. It says very sharp, it's kekelev sheshav al kiyeh. He shouldn't return. He should wait. He should wait where he is. V'acha sheyivsa shliach tzibur sholish psias lacherov. When the Shliach Tzibur finishes davening, is maschil u'mispal b'kil rom mitchilas habrachas leheitzias mishalei hispal. So that's when he starts the Chazoras HaShatz. He doesn't mention over here that l'chura He says he goes back 3 steps. I think in another Rambam it says va'imid, va'yamid, or here the Shina Nuschois it says that yamid. Knows he goes back and he stands, and the stands means he stands kedehil of daladamis, because he doesn't start right away chazaras hashatz, but then there are mobbings that he walks back the 3 steps like we do, and then he starts the shmein esru maskul bekel ram mitchilas abrachas lehetzias mishalei spal v'hakel oindim v'shemim v'einin omer acher kol bracha ben elu shalei yatzu dechivasum. That's a Seder Advar. Everyone davens the still Shemini Esrei, and if someone that didn't know how to daven, so he is quiet. And then when it comes Chazaras Hashatz, everyone listens to the Chazaras Hashatz, and the ones that didn't daven yet are Yoitza. Now it's important to know, we didn't mention it, maybe it's important to know Azay, that B'chlal, the general rule is that Shemei Koina. If you listen to a bracha and it's Keilu Koina, but B'negei Tefillah, the Alter Rebbe brings it in Tov Kuf Tzadik Dalet. The Magen Avram over there also in Tov Kuf Tzadik Dalet says it Pshat in Rambam, in this Rambam, in the Rambam in Periches, that Bechlal in Tefillah there's no musig of Shemei Koina. In other words, they bring from a Yerushalmi in Tefillah there's no musig of Shemei Koina. In other words, if a person doesn't know how to daven, he can't hear davening from someone else. You have to daven yourself. However, there's another din, that if there's a tzibur, and the shliach tzibur davens for the whole tzibur, so the tzibur is yoitza, the davening of the shliach tzibur. So it's another gather. It's not the pshat, is the shliach tzibur davened, and you heard his davening, so maybe you're shemei kaina. Pshat is, since you're part of the tzibur, it's like a different lumdus. You're part of the tzibur, so the shliach tzibur is being moitzah to you. So the Chazal made there's 2 ways of davening. It's one way of davening. You should daven yourself, and if you know how to daven yourself, you taka cannot be yoitza as being part of the tzibur. That gather of being part of the tzibur, you cannot be yoitza. You could only be yoitza by davening yourself. Masha'en came someone that does Misha'eni Baki doesn't know how to daven. Chazal instituted that there's another way of him davening, of being part of a tzibur, and the shliach tzibur kilo davens for him. But in order for the shliach tzibur's davening to be considered that he's davening for him, he has to listen and answer on it. And then there's another chidush that beniged during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where over there it's a longer tefillah. So over there, Chazal instituted that even someone that's a baki could also be yoitza with the tzibur. So in other words, it's not being yoitza because you're listening. You're yoitza because the shliach tzibur is speaking for the tzibur, and as part of the tzibur, the shliach tzibur is being yoitza. So it could be, I'm just saying, before we were discussing yesterday, I think, when you get Peres al Shema, that the Sadin Peres al Shema. So it could be by but could be by Shema. There's also such a din that by Shema you have to know. The Yerushalmi brings when they get Krishma. That's the emes. The Yerushalmi brings one of the 3 things is Krishma. That by Krishma you have to say Krishma yourself, unless you're an Eini Baki. And then there's a musik called Peres al Shema. So Peres al Shema means that you're part of a tzibur. I don't know if the Yerushalmi says it clearly when you get Peres al Shema, but I'll call upon there's such a concept. I know there's a din nachamo. There's a din by regular brachas. There's a din of Shmei Ka'ina. But there are certain things that the din of Shmei Ka'ina doesn't apply, and one of them is Shemini Esrei. Al der zeh b'negei Shema, and al der zeh b'negei Birchas Hamazon. If you're a baki, you can't be Yetzer Shmei Ka'ina unless it's a zimun. Where when it's a zimun, so it's also a different gather. It's like they're davening together. Everyone's davening as one group. I'll call upon him. So that's like an important thing to know. That by tefillah, the only way to be yoitza with someone else's tefillah is if you're part of a minyan and he davens on your behalf. Okay. That's that. And now, but everyone has to listen to the yomin. And that's really the gather of Chazaras Hashatz. The gather of Chazaras Hashatz is that the Chazal instituted that there should be a minyan, and the Shliach Tzibur should daven out b'shvil hashatz. But there a klal, it's to be meitzi those people that are Eini Baki, even if there's no one that's Eini Baki. But l'peil azayim the Chazal instituted that there should be a tefillah on behalf of the tzibur, which is done through the Shliach Tzibur. Okay. So the Shliach Tzibur is saying Chazaras Hashatz, and then halacha dalet ve'emer kedusha bebracha shlishis. When he comes to the third bracha, so then yesh rishus l'cholechad ve'echad lachzer l'mokim she'amad bei b'tfilah. So originally, when he was Piseh Gimel Psias, he said he should be Yamid b'mokim she'giya lov, but now he has rishus. No chiyuv, is a rishus to go back to where he davened. She'yagia shliach tzibur l'meidim v'kireya is also kol la'am sheichen mi'at, but v'le'yishchu yesem midai. So in those be'emes, they were already kireya b'meidim in Shmin Esrei. So now they're saying, since it says meidim anachnu loch, so they're showing that they're being mishtatif in the moedim. So over here, it's not necessary that they have to be yishchu yesem midai. It's brought down also if they're yishchu yesem midai, it's maybe mevzik yora. So I'll call upon they have to be sheichem miat and not yesem midai. Ve'emrim meidim anachnu loch, Hashem olikeinu v'lekiav kol basar yitzreinu yetze bereishas brachas ve'idoyes l'shimcha hagadol ve'hakadosh al shech yisonu v'kiyamtonu kem chayenu v'schonenu v'sesav gol yisenu l'chatzos kodshecha l'ishmuch l'kecha l'avdecha v'lasos tzinecha b'leiv of shalom al she'anu meidim loch. So notice al she'anu meidim loch means part of the hidoy is that we're thanking the Eibishter that we were zeicha to be made of the Eibishter. That's the al she'anu meidim loch. B'chol ha'emer meidim mishaskenes. So you say meidim once. You don't say meidim because it's nishma kili. You're saying meidim lishnei reshuyos. Yeah. So this is we're talking about now the chazor. So we learned about how the shliach tzibur starts. The birchas krishma. Everyone says the shtilah shmin esrei, and then there's the chazor shashatz. Halacha hey va'achar sheyashlim kol hatfilah is yeshiv v'yipol al ponov v'yatem me'at hu v'chol hatzibur. So really, they say, according to the Rambam, they sit down, and then the Yipul al Ponav, the pashtus brought down that they push a Yipul al Ponav on the floor. Now, if you're putting your face on the floor, so there's a problem. There could be a problem of the stone floor. There's a yatamiyat, so you don't put your face straight flat on the floor. You're yatamiyat in order that there shouldn't be any shaila on a ritzpas avonim. Hu v'chol hatzibur v'yischanen v'hu neifel in that position. While he's neufel, he's mischanen, and then the yeshiv yagbir reishe hu ashar ha'am. This is everyone's doing this together. Umischanen ma'at b'kil ram miyushifin. They continue being mischanen while they're not neufel upon them, while they're miyushif. V'achar kach yam shliach tzibur levade ve'emer kaddish pam shniya. So now he says another kaddish. V'heim einen kederach shanu tchila. Again, they answered kaddish. And then ve'emer v'hurachum v'chulu, tilo l'david v'chulu. So this v'hurachum is not so clear which v'hurachum, because the Rambam later on in the Tfilis is going to mention the v'hurachum, the lange v'hurachum, and he says that some people don't say all the Tfilis every day. So he mentions it. But I'll call upon, here we're talking about he already finished Tachnan, and there was already a Kaddish after the Tachnan. Now he mentions you say v'hurachum v'chulu, tilo l'david v'chulu, and hu emet v'hen yeshu. And again, the Rambam doesn't seem, this idea of standing by Kaddish, there's no mention of the Rambam of standing by Kaddish. Derech Agav, we didn't point it out, but in Halachi Gimel, the Rambam mentions v'hakel eimdim, v'shemim v'einonomin. So by Chazaras Hashatz, everyone stands. That's what the Rambam says. Everyone stands during Chazaras Hashatz and the answer Amen. But b'negei Kaddish, there's no mention of standing by Kaddish. And even by Baruch Hu, the Rambam doesn't mention that the Elam stands by Baruch Hu. The Shliach Tzibur gets up to say Kaddish and he says Baruch Hu, but the Elam answers, doesn't say that they stand up, saying in Rambam. So, Ve'ema v'hurachim tila l'David hu emed v'hein yeshim v'hein keden imik. So everyone is saying Ashrei. V'achar kach oimer uvolitzion geil. So it's not the Rambam, the Rambam now b'negei uvolitzion goil, which is the Seder the Kedusha. The Rambam only says v'achar kach oimer. He's speaking about the Chazan. He doesn't. And earlier he says v'hein, and they say with him. Here he says v'achar kach oimer v'olitzin goil v'chulu v'anize is brisi oisam v'chulu v'ata kodesh chulu v'zkara zel zeh v'chulu v'goimer hakedusha, and he finishes kodesh, and then v'heim oinen kodesh leishapam. And they say Kodesh, Shleish Rapon. What does it mean Shleish Rapon? 3 times the word Kaddish. That seems like they don't say the whole pasuk. Kaddish, 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 Hashem Tzvois. They say Kaddish, Kaddish. That's I'm saying the Lashon Rambam. Kaddish, 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 Shleishapam. And then the Chayzer, the Kaire Hagdusha Targum. So the Shliach Tzibur continues and he translates the Kedusha. Ve'emer v'tiseini ruach v'chulu v'kaireu Targum. And over there, here it doesn't say that they answer b'chlal. Ve'emer Hashem yimlech v'chulu v'kaireu Targum kidei lahavin lam. So the Seder Advarim is, it sounds like from the Rambam, Lashon Rambam, and the Mefarshim HaMedayik, that Lashon Rambam is that the whole of Volitzi and the Chazan says. And the only thing that he mentions that the Shliach, that the Tzibur says is Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. And L'churi, he means just these words, Kaddish, 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 because he's saying Shleishapam. If he means to say the whole pasuk, he passes to Zogan L'churi the Lashon Shleishapam. And then he says, "Ve'elu apsukim shelifnei hagdusha v'shel acharei in tirgumon heiman nikroim seder hayom." So sometimes the Rambam says you say the seder hayom. This is what he means, seder hayom. V'acher kach mischanan b'divrei tachnunim u'psuki rachmim ve'emer kaddish v'chol ha'om einam kedarkon. They answer kaddish like the seder of answering kaddish is v'niftarim, and then they go. So the seder advarim is that after chazaras hashatz there's tachnun. And then everyone says Ashrei, and then the Chazan says of Olitzien, and the Elam answers Kaddish, 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 and then after that they add Mischan. It also sounds like it's only the Shliach Tzibur. They're saying the Ritachnun Psuki Rachmim, and then they say another Kaddish, and that's the and Koloam Einun Kedarkim V'Nuftar. Kol Eimer B'Tachnunim. Misherichem al kanziper. So he said before that you say divrei tachnunim. Yeah, he says v'acher kach mischanen b'divrei tachnunim. He said in the previous halacha. Not only you psukim, you express divrei tachnunim. You could say tefillos of tachnunim. So he says kol ha'emer b'tachnunim. Misherichem al kanziper shliyikach ha'em al abonim. Eshel yishchat esiv es b'nei b'yemechad yirachem aleinu kiyetze b'inyan zeh. Someone that says that is mishatkin esei. Why? The idea of not taking the kanziper or not taking the shlechting, the emal abonim, is not rachmim. Why? The enam rachmim. She'ilu hayim epnei rachmim is lahitul lanu shchita kolikar. If there would be a issue on rachmim over here, but b'chlal nishmati given shchita. V'chein leyarbe b'kinuyim shel shem v'yemer akel agodel agiber v'neida achozik v'amatz v'yizus. He only says the shvachim that Moshe Rabbeinu said. So this is the Seder of Tfilas HaTzibur by Shachris. B'mincha is the Eimer Shliach Tzibur v'hu rachim chulu, asher yeshvi v'chulu, asher ya'om v'chulu, tilu l'David v'chulu. So here again he says v'hu rachim, the pasuk of v'hu rachim. And then asher yeshvi v'secha, which is also just the pasuk of asher yeshvi v'secha, asher ya'om, and then tilu l'David. Everyone is sitting, and then the Eimer Shliach Tzibur, after they finish Ashrei, the Eimer Shliach Tzibur, the Eimer Kaddish, the Heim Oinden Acharov, the Heim Oinden Acharov. Weißt du, it's not together after he finishes Kaddish. The Oinden Kedarkon. No, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, the Eimer Shliach Tzibur, the Eimer Kaddish, the Heim Oinden Acharov. Before he says Kaddish, because Ve'ein Kedarkon knows they answer Kaddish after they're already standing, or since they were about to stand up anyways, they're about to stand up for Shemina Esrei. So they already stand up for Kaddish, and they answer the Kaddish while they're standing. U'mispal and kulan b'lachash, v'achar kach chezeh shliach tzibur u'mispal b'kil ram kederach she'asa b'shachris, at sheyashem is kol atfila, and again, yeshiv hu v'hein v'nefn al pneim u'mischanen u'magbia reishe hu v'hein u'mischanen mi'at miyushiv kederach shachris ve'emed ve'emer kaddish. And again, v'chol ha'am ein kedarkom v'niftarnu masay. So over here, right after this tachnun, and then this kaddish, and then everyone is niftarnu l'masay. Bo'erev kol ha'am yeshvin v'hu eimed ve'emer v'hu rachim chulu borchus Hashem ha'meverach. So there's no kaddish in the beginning of Ma'ariv in the Rambam's Nusach. So he says, he says, everyone's sitting and he stands and he says, V'hurachum and Baruch V'heimeinin Baruch Hashem HaMaveirach Leilam Vod. Doesn't mention that they say V'hurachum. They're all sitting and he stands up and he says, V'hurachum, Baruch Hashem HaMaveirach, and they answer, Baruch Hashem HaMaveirach Leilam Vod. U'maschel Lifris Al Shema. And again, he goes through the whole Birchas Kriyashma and Kriyashma. It's loud. And again, those people that don't know, they're Yetzer from him. Those people that do know, say together with him. And then Ve'emer Kaddish, V'achar kach hakel oindim, u'mispallim b'lachash, u'kshemashlimim Omer Kaddish v'hein neftar. So what I said before wasn't right. I said that since they're getting up anyways to say Shemini Esrei, so Mamela they get up for Kaddish. Over here we see that he says Kaddish, V'achar kach hakel oindim, u'mispallim b'lachash. So they stand up to daven this Ma'ariv Shemini Esrei after he finished Kaddish. And by Mincha, over there it seems to be that they stand up to answer the Kaddish before he says Kaddish. And it's not so clear earlier. It says like he stands up and he says Kaddish, and then it says they stand up and they're Oinin Kedarkan. When Oinin Kedarkan sounds like, yeah, while they were standing. I'm not 100% sure what happened before. But over here it seems to be that they stand. In other words, he stands and he says Kaddish, and then they stand. Nachamo. V'achar kach hakel eindum mispalim b'lachash, k'shemashlimin emer Kaddish ve'ein neftar. And ve'ein echezel ispal b'kil arvis. By Ma'ariv there's no chazar sashatz. Lefi she'ein tfilas arvis cheva. Lefichach leyivarich zeh brachas levatola. She'ein kan odam shenischayev behem kedei lehitziyah. So in other words, by Shachris and Mincha, they instituted that there should be Chazar Sashatz in order to be moitzi the person that is not able to daven. He's mechuyev to daven, he's not able to daven. So they instituted that there should be a musik of Chazar Sashatz. But by Ma'ariv, there's no real chiyuv to daven. So Chatchili, you're supposed to daven. You're supposed to daven Ma'ariv. But if you didn't daven Ma'ariv, so they should institute that there should be a tefillah in order to be moitze, the ones that were mechuyev. If a zevite is not mechuyev, in other words, even though it's kiblu chayva, but it's not a zevite that it's so much a chayva that you have to have a kilo, a tzibur, a shliach tzibur should daven on his behalf. He's not so much mechuyev. A person is not mechuyev to daven ma'ariv. L'chatchili should daven ma'ariv. He can't daven ma'ariv. He can't daven ma'ariv. Yeah, that's why it's the There was no institution of a shliach tzibur to daven ma'ariv on their behalf, because they're not muchatchila so mechuyev. And the fact that they accepted upon themselves, someone that knows accepted upon himself to daven, but that accepting upon himself is not going to create a new institution of having chazar sashatz. Now that's regular. So regularly there's no chazar sashatz by ma'ariv. But leili shabboses is chayzer shliach tzibur achash mispal b'lachash matzibur umispal b'kilram. This is Friday night. He does daven over. Aval einem mispal sheva. He doesn't say all 7 brachas of ma'ariv. Ela bracha achas me'ein hasheva. V'kachu emra. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu Elokei Avram Elokei Yitzchak v'Elokei Yaakov Akel Agod Lagibur V'Neira Akel Elyon Kei Nishmayim Ba'aretz Gemel Chasadim Tevim V'Kei Hakel Mogen Ovis B'Dvarim V'Chayimesim Mamori HaMelech HaKodesh Ein Kameyu. Over here it says HaMelech HaKodesh. I think I saw in another Rambam I was reading that it said Akel HaKodesh. HaMelech HaKodesh Ein Kameyu Aminech La'amei B'Shabbos Kodshe Kivam Rotza Loniach Lehem Lefon of Navi B'Yirav V'Fachad V'Nedel L'Shmei B'Chol Yom Tamid Mo'oin HaBroches Adoin HaSholem M'vorach Shviyim and Kaddish HaShabbos Y'minech B'Kedusha L'Am B'Dush Ne'enig Zeich L'Maisev Reishes L'Ikenu L'Lekei Aviseinu Ritzeinu V'Mnuchaseinu V'Chulu Baruch Ato Hashem M'Kaddish HaShabbos V'Eimer Kaddish V'Chol Am Niftar. So B'Leili Shabbos there's a special din that there's a Chazar Sashatz, but not a regular Chazar Sashatz, a Chazar Sashatz of a bracha me'ein sheva. Why? Normally, there's no din of chazoros hashatz. Why over here there is a chazoros hashatz? There's a special din. So there are people that everyone comes Friday night to shul, and there are people that will come late. And when the Eilam will leave, so they're going to leave those people still in the middle of davening. So they elongated, they made the davening a little longer for the tzibur. So they made a special takana that the tefillah should be a little longer in order so this person that came late shouldn't be left alone. So it comes out from here that be'etzem, it's not pshat, Shabbos is Friday night, be'etzem Shabbos is mechuyev in the pesadin of Chazar Sashatz. It's just it's a technical thing. Since Friday night people come to shul, and some people come to shul late, so therefore they instituted the Shebir Chazar Sashatz. As a result of that, lefichach, Yontiv Shechol Lias b'Shabbos, Eyem HaKippurim Rish Chedesh is Shabbos, is Ein Shliach Tzibur Hayered Arbes Lefnei HaTeva Maskir Inyan Hayem B'Bracha Zu. Because you don't mention Yom Kippur, you don't mention Rish Chedesh, you don't mention Yontif during the Chazar Sashatz of Meir. In other words, when you say at the end Mekadesh HaShabbos, you don't say Mekadesh HaShabbos V'Yisrael Vazmanim Shabbos Mekadesh HaShabbos and Yom Kippurim. You don't say that. Elechesim Ba Mekadesh HaShabbos Bolvad L'Fishin Nischayev Hayem B'Tfilah Zu, because it's not a din in the yem. So the Mepharshim explains, when the Mishnah explains Azay, the Pshat is Azay. Be'emes, L'Moshel, you have Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur is a din in Yom Kippur. Shabbos has no Ne'ilah, and Shabbos has no Ne'ilah. But from deswegen, if it's Shabbos, so in the Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, you'll mention Shabbos. Why? I lechurim, it's at Shabbos, there's no Ne'ilah. So lechurim, Ne'ilah is only al Yom Kippur, so mention Ne'ilah, yeah. But lepel, since today is Shabbos, and in all the tefillahs you mention Shabbos, so over here you also mention Shabbos, even though on Shabbos you don't say Ne'ilah, but on Yom Kippur you do say Ne'ilah. On Yom Kippur is a day you say Ne'ilah, and it's Shabbos. So Mamela, in the tefillah of Ne'ilah, which is a Yom Kippur, Dika tefillah, you mention Shabbos as well. So lechurim, just like you mentioned Shabbos in the Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, so let's mention Yom Kippur in the Chazar Sashatz of Shabbos. Well, let's mention Yontiv in the Chazar Sashatz of Shabbos. In other words, Yontiv there's no Chazar Sashatz, by Ma'ariv, but on Shabbos there is. So let's mention the Yontiv, just like we mentioned Shabbos in the Chazar Sashatz of Ne'ilah in the Ne'ilah. So let's mention Yontiv or Rish Chedesh in the Chazar Sashatz of Ma'ariv. So the answer is Azay. If the pshatas would be that Ma'ariv of Shabbos is mechuyev and Chazar Sashatz be'etzem, Kilu Shabbos is a din which mitzad the din of Shabbos daf is kumen that on Ma'ariv there should be Chazar Sashatz, just like in Kippur daf have Ne'ilah. Ma'ariv on Shabbos daf have Chazar, it needs to have Chazar Sashatz. So there you could say good. So since it's a din in Shabbos, and Shabbos, and this Shabbos happens to be Rish Chedesh or Yontiv, so you mentioned Yontiv as well. You mentioned Rish Chedesh as well, because it's a din in Shabbos, and Memela have all the din of Shabbos, which all the tefillahs of Shabbos you mention Rish Chedesh, so this tefillah you also mention. Masha'in came, since it's not really a din in Shabbos, B'chal has nothing to do with Shabbos. It's just a technical thing that on Friday night people would come late, everyone would come, and some people would come late, and therefore they instituted that in order that a person shouldn't remain in shul himself, so they instituted that you should have this tefillah. So since it's not a din on Chavas Hayem, it's just a technical thing, so therefore Friday night you mention it and you mention Shabbos. Masha'inkin, you're not going to start mentioning other things because it has nothing to do with Shabbos. And Memela has nothing, it certainly has nothing to do with Yontif. And it's not a din in Shabbos either, it's just a din in bavarning this inyan. And Memela, you say this bracha. I think that's what it says in Kesef Mishnah. And that's the pshat. See, Nachmal, let's read the It's not that if the day would be mechuyev in Chazar Sashatz, it would be a din in Shabbos. So since Shabbos is mechuyev in Chazar Sashatz, and this Shabbos is Yom Tov, so you mentioned all the things that Shabbos is mechuyev, also Yom Tov. But it's not a din in Shabbos; it's a technical din. So in Mela, you don't mention Yom Tov. Halacha Yud Gimel. B'Shabbos is Yom Tovim. Shegemer shliach tzibur tefillah shachris b'kil rom, emer kaddish, v'achar kach keiri tila l'David v'chulu, and again v'emer kaddish, u'mispal musav b'lachash, v'chezer u'mispal musav b'kil rom, kederach she'esa b'shachris, and again v'emer kaddish achat tefillas musav, v'am niftar. So it's irregular. You finish shachris, and then you say Tila l'David, and then again you say Kaddish, Musaf, Chazoras Hashatz, and again Kaddish. Ve'einem Kedusha, v'lei tachanunim, achat tefillah shachris, kishar hayomim, ele emerei sekeden tefillas mincha. The Ashrei and the Uvolitzian, which we call, which the Tachanunim, say the Kedusha, which we normally say after shachris, over here we say after before mincha. Ketzat. Keira Tilu David, Ve'emer Seder Ayeng V'Divir Tachnunim, Ve'emer Kaddish, U'Mispal Mincha, V'Chezer U'Mashmiya Tfilas Mincha B'Kil Rom, Ve'emer Kaddish. That's the Chazar Sashatz of Mincha. Rosh Chadoshim V'Chelu Shel Meid is Emer Seder Ayeng Achat Tfilas Musaf, also a Shinu. Whereas on a regular Shachris, you say it after Shachris. A regular day where there's only Shachris, you say it after Shachris. Shabbos, you say it before Mincha. And on Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, you say it not after Shachris and not before Mincha, but after Musaf. Eimer Seder Hayom Achat Tfilas Musaf. B'Mitzvah Shabbos, Eimer Seder Hayom Gam Achat Tfilas Erev, Eimer Kaddish, V'achar Kach Mavdul, and then you say Avdul.